My dear friends, I warmly welcome you from Portugal, where in just a moment Jarek will present his naturally fifth car on my channel for the fifth time. This test is completely off the charts, both in terms of the familiarity of this face you'll see in a moment, and also in terms of distance. Jarek drove this car 4,000 kilometers to get here to the west of Algarve. I'm not saying it was just to see me, it was a big trip that he'll tell you about in a moment, but let's start with the car. Let's begin.
Thanks for watching. Hi, welcome everyone. For the fifth time, I think this will be the final time I'm here for the first time, but this isn't Zakharov, Kristina Chubuvna, or something like that. We'll be talking more about this equipment, which is what I should have brought the first time. However, I think that because I've owned this car for 7 years, of course it's a Corvette C5, I'll have a lot of interesting information for you, first-hand information. Because I've driven this car, well, I think around 45,000 kilometers, which for a car like this is actually quite a lot. It's a post-facelift model from '98. It had exactly 350 American horsepower. If I'm not mistaken, that's almost 500 Nm of torque, and I think just under 1,500 kilograms of weight. I think that's just the right amount of power. At times, you can floor it all the way without being afraid that you'll just end up in a guardrail or a ditch. I drove very fast here through Germany. In accordance with the law, I think I accelerated up to 260 for a moment, so it was very, very enjoyable. And loud, of course, because, well, it's fast, frameless, 28 years old a car. That's life. At the time of purchase in 2018, it had about 109 or 112,000 kilometers on the odometer. Now it has 100,000. We didn't park this car with its rear showing by accident. I think these lights, this rear design, that's something that does an amazing job. There are no extra spoilers here, just a clean line. As for the power unit, here we have the classic respected LS1. It's an engine that's often taken from wrecked cars. You can really do a lot of things here. We've done a few small modifications. This air filter was already done. And there's also a complete exhaust system from the engine all the way to the end. And here we managed to achieve a really nice compromise between sportiness and the car's drivability. The car, as you might see in the cutscenes, is fully serviced in every way. A lot of work, a lot of searching for parts. They are, of course, available on the American market. Nowadays, it's not a problem at all. You can just order them, but you have to keep in mind that it's not going to be like you go to the service center the next day and the parts will be there. You just need to come up with a certain strategy so you don't get left out in the cold. As for the details of modifying this exhaust, well, here we have it. I don't know what it's called in Polish. They're called long tube headers, and we have an X-pipe, which means one pipe goes into the other. I didn't have any problems with the engine. This is an armored unit, but of course you have to take care of oil changes depending on how you drive. If it's an older lady just going out for bread, because that can happen too, then it's closer to 10,000, maybe 12,000. If we drive a bit more aggressively, it would be good to shorten that interval a little more. But oil isn't expensive, engine repairs are expensive, so it's probably worth it. Usually the first question that comes up at the gas station, because these conversations are started quite often. Well, obviously it's about fuel consumption, so how much does it use? Well, here people sometimes have an incomplete understanding of a V8, because it varies greatly depending on how much load we're going to put on this car. If we drive on the road, let's say at 80 or 90 kilometers per hour, then it will burn 8.5 liters if it were a manual. Because this is an automatic, then it would use even less. Really, manual 6 speeds in these cars achieve some absolutely incredible fuel consumption results. However, when it comes to general average fuel consumption in a mixed cycle, a bit on the road, a bit in the city. The average consumption with an automatic transmission is around 13.5 liters. And that's something we can consider a certainty.
Dear viewers, the partner of this episode is MUBI Poland, which is a well-known way to buy cheap insurance. This comparison tool checks offers from many different insurance companies and provides a ranking of the cheapest offers by purchasing through MUBI PL Zakar. Additionally, after purchasing a policy, you can also receive 100 Polish zloty cashback. Check it out for yourself, even if your policy isn't expiring right now. After entering your car's details, you'll get an overview of the entire market within a few seconds. Please note that the prices displayed will be shown before deducting the mentioned cashback. You can compare it with how much you paid for your last policy. It might come in handy in the future. The link is in the description, and let's not overpay for insurance.
However, if we take this car to the track, for example, which I actually did only twice with this particular vehicle, well, here the sky is the limit. 30, 35, well, you know, obviously you don't drive like that very often, and on public roads you can't really reach the limits of this car, so I think the fuel consumption for this engine is really low. Anyway, that's how it was designed, because this car was supposed to avoid the gas guzzler tax, which is in the States. Simply put, if you have a gas guzzler that burns huge amounts of fuel, you pay an extra tax. This car was supposed to be more accessible, and it didn't fall under that tax. A word about the gearbox. In this case, I got a roundhouse kick to my wallet, and at a bad time too. We had to rebuild the gearbox from scratch. Luckily, it turned out that my guitar student also deals with things like that. A small workshop, Autoboss, Gorlitz, something like that. I highly recommend it. He built that gearbox for me from scratch. We also added various improvements to it, because for this gearbox we probably have the most upgraded parts available on the American market. Of course, as many as you can have, let's say about 50% of those parts are installed. This gearbox here is much faster. There were even some consultations with the United States about how to do it exactly so that everything would work nicely. And actually, well, I don't know, Zakharov will judge whether this is already a direct shift gearbox or not necessarily. But it's definitely much faster and a bit tuned quite aggressively. We can also manually change the gear ratio, which I used on this trip that ended here on the coast of Portugal, driving through the Pyrenees. If it wasn't possible to shift down to a lower gear to force it, I think the brakes would have been completely overheated. Here you could shift down to third, to second, and sometimes even to first gear. When it was like that, I don't remember all those spreadsheets anymore, but for sure a few tens of thousands went into all this work here, right here. I think the car has been quite heavily invested in compared to its market value. Of course, the camera won't capture it, the microphone won't capture it, you just have to be here. But Liv will do a quick rev from the front gently.
Thanks for watching.
And now the same thing from the back, where you should really listen to it. Usually these types of cars aren't really made to drive thousands of kilometers, they're more for having fun. A small backpack, a quick bag to throw in, and that's it. Here the situation is different. I don't remember exactly how many liters there are, that's something to check. However, 2 people in the car can, as you can see, go on a really big trip. And really, after taking these things out of the trunk, it turns out there's quite a lot of them. But of course, if you've ever played a game called Tetris, those skills will come in handy here to fit everything in nicely without having to force anything. When it comes to the interior of this car, opinions are divided. Here we still have a design straight from the late 90s. The radio is also classic, with GMA from those years. However, I have to say that it sounds pretty good. I think I liked it more than in the C6. And now here's the thing. If you're used to premium class German products, let's say around the year 2000, then these seats will look like that. Well, generally that's bad, but this is original leather. Usually these seats with such mileage unfortunately already require a new layer. I really wanted to keep the original here. As for the comfort of these seats, I have to say that these are probably the most comfortable ones I've ever sat in any Corvette. These are the standard seats from the C6. There were also sport seats with a hole here, with an opening in this area. They looked a bit different. Here we have a glove compartment, and this is what it sounds like, kind of like toys from China about 25 years ago, more or less. But once you close it, it's actually pretty usable. Some people here complain about the quality of these plastics. In models from 1999 onwards, you could also have a head-up display here. I think it was actually one of the first ever. Of course, it looked a bit different than the head-up displays in today's cars, but it did its job. I wish I had it, but the model year is what it is. The oil pressure sensor is a very common failure in these cars. I replaced it with an original General Motors one 2 years ago because I think it was acting up. On this trip there's a dance to the left, to the right, from 0 to max. Of course the engine runs just fine, but the oil pressure sensor will probably start beeping at us here unless it calms down and changes its mind. But it's worth keeping in mind that this kind of issue will probably happen. Some people even cut out a section here under the cowl to get to that sensor without having to take apart half the car. For a 98, well, I have to admit the amount of information is definitely sufficient. Oh, the mileage just showed up here, I'm not even surprised. 159,626 kilometers, so 160,000 kilometers it'll hit that during this trip. The base version of the Corvette is a Targa body style. We have 2 locks here, 1, 2, and 3. At the back, we take off the roof, put it in the trunk, and we can enjoy the convertible option without the risk of actuators or other complicated systems breaking down.
My dear friends, the test drive will only be a test drive in name, because I'm completely not interested in how this car drives, and I think you're also completely not interested in how this car drives right now. Only how hard it was for it to get here at all. Where did the idea come from, and why did this crazy trip happen with this car and not with 15 other cars you've worked on?
On the new channel, I saw a lot of automotive YouTubers like Dog the Miro, for example. He traveled across the States in various vehicles. I really liked it. The idea of the Pyrenees was born somewhere around that time, and I think it was the most epic route I've ever done, through the peaks of the Pyrenees.
How many days did you ride here?
First Germany, overnight stay, then to Perpignan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. To Perpignan, which is the very south of France, and that's where we attacked the Pyrenees. But not the highway version, coffee in hand and chilling, but the hardcore version. A racetrack using local roads.
Yes?
Yes, of course, local roads, completely empty, surprisingly good asphalt. I highly recommend you take a trip like this. The highest peak of the Pyrenees, asphalted, probably 2,408 meters, and that's the highlight of this trip. You could say that in Andorra it looks like we've landed on the moon. It's almost like Ricey, right? Ricey is probably 2,500 without a meter, right? The visual experience is nice. The end of these Pyrenees was something incredible with such rocky peaks. So monumental, I would say. Really nice.
So was the goal of this trip actually the Pyrenees, or maybe going as far west as possible? As much as possible, because I assume it's not about this film, it just came up along the way. You were going somewhere, what were you heading to?
Somewhere along the way, I started thinking maybe I should somehow sum up these car struggles. I heard something that you're also stationed here. Besides, I really haven't been on vacation for a long time. It's been quite a few years, actually. And I thought, all right, if we're going, then let's go all out.
There were some adventures, some more or less spectacular.
on the way, we had to replace the studs in the left rear wheel, and in the process we lost some nuts. Fortunately, I was prepared for that, and we managed to buy the studs in Porto at some really awesome shop, probably the only one like it in Portugal, I think. So here we are in this beautiful place, and for me it's a first. I've never been here in my life. In Spain, I think to the west, apart from some states in Western Europe, I think it was Lloret de Mar or something like that.
You can't go much further, right? Just Portugal, that's all. But I was once in Portugal by car too, and it was also a very long trip because I think it took me 9 days one way. Oh, wait.
Excuse me for interrupting. Take number 2. Let's connect it. Blow it all the way. Blow.
Yes. Of course, it won't go in all the way for me. Okay.
And now it will pop nicely from the exhaust. Soon go and go. Let it drop to those 2.5 more. Let it drop. There should be a bang.
And there's the bang.
And now we're going back to the conversation.
I once came to Portugal too, but my first adventure actually happened in the first 10 minutes of the trip, because after 10 minutes of traveling, a truck driving in front of me kicked a piece of cardboard up into the air. That cardboard landed right on the front of my car, tore off the license plate, and I had to stop on the highway, run after the plate, and put it back on. In the meantime, that plate got run over by a couple of trucks. It didn't look good, but I decided I had to keep going since I had already planned the trip, so we went on.
And somehow
we drove across all of Europe, nobody bothered us there and back. And the funniest epilogue to this story is that really many years later, someone wrote to me. And now I know why there's this battered license plate in my car, because I bought it and the seller had no idea why it was like that. And then I accidentally watched your film, and from it turned out that it was actually your adventure. Are you also coming back by an ambitious route through the hills, the Pyrenees, and empty good roads? Or are you just getting on the highways and heading straight home?
I mean, you have to make a certain compromise here, because unfortunately, time isn't elastic. But I want to hit a few key points along the way. First of all, it would be nice to actually see Africa from the windows of this car, which is possible, maybe somewhere like Murcia, then along the coast. To Barcelona, I think I was there about 17 years ago. There's no point in going in. Oh, Gadu.
Yeah, he stole. That's it. That'll be it.
One thing I'd really like to see is that drive through Monaco, Monte Carlo. I've never been there.
It's worth it. My next question, how do people react?
I don't know what it is about this car. Maybe it's the color, maybe it's the lines I mentioned, maybe it's the game Need for Speed and so on. I'm not sure of the specific reason. It could be one or a combination of them. People, wherever I go with this car, people react really amazingly. I don't know, Estonia, Tallinn, Cosmos, great reactions. Portugal, also very nice after all. I think people are just so open and friendly.
When I was recording this car, driving with another one, I could hear how kids were reacting, shouting and pointing, saying, look, look, you just don't see things like that here.
An interesting story of a bid with the Ford Fiesta. A girl, I don't know, maybe around 25 years old, stopped, got out of the car, was taking pictures, and I just happened to be passing by. So I said, all right, maybe I'll take that picture for you, and if you want, go ahead and get in, no problem.
Just as I suspected, the girls are squeezing through the door, trying to jump inside.
But the worst part is that there's just a certain kind of deadline. There's no time.
We have to go, and we'll be recording the summary. Let me ask this. Because usually in situations like this, I ask if you would buy it again, but this time I'll say, would you go again? I'm not even saying necessarily to Portugal, just would you go again in a 28-year-old car, 4,000 kilometers one way anywhere, which one?
I think so. It's also kind of a summary of the whole time I've owned the car, which is definitely better now than when I bought it. And the answer is absolutely yes. It's something amazing, an adventure. I think we'll still do the Nord Cup in our lives, and I think that'll be a surprise.
In the summer,
as always in the summer, of course, here, yes. It's also worth mentioning that when you enter these higher regions, even if it's not winter, once you reach around 2,000 meters and above, you really need to check the weather. We were so lucky that at that pass where the Tour de France takes place, there's always either some wind or a downpour. We had absolutely perfect weather. We'll show some photos and maybe add something.
Thank you very much for reaching out when you were already here in the area. And so to speak, you were already probably the biggest repeat guest on the channel, and now I don't think anyone will beat you with 5 cars. Of course, I wish you a safe journey and a safe return home. And I wish everyone the courage to set off on such a long trip in a car that's not new, and to choose a route that's definitely not the easiest one. And to make it, and to show up here with a smile, and after those 4,000 kilometers to present it with such shiny rims, which probably wasn't easy.
Listen, I didn't have, well, those rims after the Pyrenees. They were never more black than that silver chrome color or something like that. An absolute disaster. And today too, with very limited time, because this isn't just a 3-kilometer trip from the garage and Zaka shows up and we make a perfect car. It was a tough battle with the resources we had. I don't know, I hope I met your expectations, and somehow the car looks decent now.
I'm presenting it. I can see here, the whole village can see how it looks.
I suspect this will probably be my last appearance here, I think, so I especially wanted to thank you. Under all those videos, most of the comments were positive, so I'm very pleased. This isn't really my usual audience, mine is more musical, so yeah, that's how it is. I'm very grateful that the reception was nice, and I guess it's just great to share your passion, right? Zaka, thank you very much.
Thanks to you too.
I think it's going to be great.
Thank you all as well.